How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Talk4 Podcast. So excited to have you here today and show you this fantastic episode. Just want to say quickly that episodes like this one and all the ones before and the ones in future are made possible by people who subscribe. Hopefully, just like you. I'm going to ask you today, if you can, leave a subscribe, leave a follow, leave a rating, leave a like or a comment, and just support the show in the little ways that you can like that. It makes a huge difference on my end. And quickly, just want to plug as well. I've taken 30 of the best episodes of this podcast and turned them into a fantastic book that goes into 150 secrets to greatness. Each one of those 30 episodes gets crunched down into 5 of the best key takeaways from the whole talk and turns them into a fantastic book. Highly recommend you check it out. Please support the show by grabbing a copy, either a paperback or an ebook. And I can't wait to show you guys this one today. So guys, without further ado, let's get over to the episode. How's it going, guys? Welcome to episode 168 of Talk4, the quickfire podcast where we ask 4 great questions to unique and interesting people. Behind the mic today is your host, Skupien. That's me. Let me introduce our fantastic guest for today. Chris Kaspar is going to be answering our questions today. So, hey, Chris, man, this is going to be a great episode. There's some really interesting things to dig into here. I'm super excited about it. But first of all, the most important thing, how you doing today? And welcome to the show. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, Louis, thanks for the invitation. I'm excited about today's conversation. I'm passionate about this. So it's going to be a good conversation. Excited to dive in.
You should be, because I know I am. I know that the people listening in should be too, because this is going to be a really, really good talk, and I'm super pumped about it. So let's get up to speed first. That's a great place to start then. So just a bit of a snapshot into the life of you, what you've got going on and what you're all about really would be a great place to start. So we call it the elevator pitch, kind of around 1 minute to 2 minutes of just the stuff that you're getting up to, how you'd kind of dive into it really in a bit of a nutshell. And then we're going to go into the 4 questions and really dig into those on the bigger scale. So if you start us off with that little intro, that's a great place to kick it off.
Sure. So in a nutshell, I was part of a 5th gen family business. Really cool blessings of opportunity. And I really took a break, took a pause and just said, hey, I want to make impact on the world. Like I want to change the world in a meaningful way. So I had a cool career there. I had an ad agency, very successful. And in a nutshell, I said, what's the greatest challenge facing our world today? And it had to do with technology. Technology was just killing us in so many ways, our minds, our bodies, our souls. And it's just really a threat to who we are as humans. And so I've been on this journey the last 7 years, defining what healthy technology looks like, and not just defining it, but I'm actually one of the very few people in the world that's actually building the future of what healthy technology looks like. So I have a phone, a couple other tools in queue, but we've sold thousands of them, changed lots of lives, but I'm on this journey to create healthy technology.
That's brilliant. So let's get into it. Let's really talk about exactly what that looks like and how that's working for you then. So you founded Techless, developed Sage Mobile, a simplified smartphone for kids, as well as Wisephone for adults in the US. Can you please just give us a bit of a walkthrough then on the inspiration behind creating a stripped back phone and how your personal experiences influenced this innovation? So kind of a bit of a backstory question, really, how it led to doing what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So the backstory, it all really started with Wisephone, but there was this moment where I had foster kids. I had 10 and 13-year-old daughters, and the caseworkers dropped them off, and they said, hey, don't let these girls near anything that looks like a smartphone. Come to find out they'd done some really dark stuff with their devices previously, just could not be trusted with them. And that sort of began the journey for me, I would say. It kind of shook me awake of how, as a parent, do I give them technology and trust them with it, and yet they live in this hyper-connected world. It's this conundrum that all the parents are facing right now. Everyone who's a parent has faced this in this moment right now, and found out that, hey, if you put boundaries at the device level, we end up giving them an Amazon Alexa device, and those boundaries really helped. We didn't have to argue over the boundaries. Like, it deepened our relationship with them. We gave them something we could trust them with, and that was kind of this moment where, like, hey, the technology, it's the systems, it's the policies around the technology that's broken. And we didn't have to innovate anything. But if we came to the table with a different fundamental design philosophy, that at the end of the day, it could be absolutely transformative and remove that tension. And in fact, actually make tech a joyful thing to be part of our lives and still live in today's hyper-connected world and not be Luddites. So that's kind of like long story, backstory, but I've, done research and read papers, and we built products and iterated. We're on our 7th-gen tech stack, just kind of constantly digging away at that question of what's good for us, what's not good for us, what's in between. And it comes down to really sophisticated, in a sense, world-changing perspective or policy around that question there. So sold thousands of phones. It's been a wild journey, but that's it in a huge high-level nutshell. So
That's brilliant. On the technical factors of that then, so how did that kind of go from product, or sorry, how did that kind of go from this idea to product? So that sort of development phase, going from just basically, an idea, I imagine, what was the initial idea there, I suppose? Was there a particular moment that kind of inspired it? And then if you kind of walk us through a bit of that timeline to getting it out there and then getting obviously this great response to it, what did that look like?
Yeah. So the first moment was the journey with foster kids. And then I had to ask, hey, tech is broken. Why is it broken? You kind of do that 5 whys exercise of, okay, tech is broken because we live in the attention economy. Why do we live in the attention economy? It's because venture capital needs financial returns. So if we have a different fundamental business model, and kind of dug deeply into understanding the very heart of why our tech was broken. After that, had a concept, wanted to make a phone that was safe for kids, and did a lot of research with kids, talked to a lot of them, and learned that, hey, historically, kids' phones have failed because they're kiddie, like the Barbie phone, the Disney phone. Like, kids don't want that thing. Even little babies want your device, not the wooden toy that you give them. And so we were the very first ever smartphone form factor for kids. Wisephone, we wanted it to be very sophisticated. We brought in the creator of Apple iPad, Gen 1 iPad, a guy named Josh Banco. He came in along with the top UX designer in the world and made a very unique design system. 2 colors, 2 fonts, 8 apps, like literally the entire OS, all the core apps, 2 colors, 2 fonts, very minimalist, very sophisticated, very adult in its appeal, but it was safe for kids. So we launched it, and everyone's like, oh, this is great. I want this. Even though we made it for kids, 80% of our sales were actually to adults who wanted to reclaim their lives. And so again, reiterated, recoded, learned from, the iterative design process, and scaled in both investment risk, product scope to where we are today. We've launched a second version of it in partnership with Samsung. And then through that, the trust we've gained in the industry, we actually have a relationship now with Apple. So it's kind of bigger and bigger fish, bigger and bigger partnerships we've established. And now Apple has given us the keys to the kingdom, and we're doing something very similar on iPhone currently.
This is absolutely fantastic news, and what an incredible journey. If we talk a little bit about the technicalities of that, then, so obviously kind of digging into, I suppose, core roots of the problems, and then how you sort of went and applied that too. So when you figure out exactly what you've got to limit on technology nowadays and phones and stuff to make it safe for kids, for example, where'd you begin on that? What are the big kind of red flags, I suppose? How do you even go about stripping those things back? And how do you kind of come to that decision, I suppose, or how do you come to that sort of end product, really, of knowing exactly what to take away without kind of killing the experience, really, of technology?
Sure. So kind of to set the stage, first of all, we live in this crazy hyper-connected world. Like, you have to be somewhat connected, or the other option that people think is the only other option is to be a Luddite, Amish, throw your phone in the bin, just nothing, paper-based world. Well, the catch is that right now, most of our technology commingles the good and the bad. It has evil defaults. Like, you just can't separate things. And like, I'll take an example just to give a practical example. So the Southwest Airlines app, okay, you use it to book flights, to check on flight status, all great, travel logistics, scan your boarding pass, wonderful. But then you also use it to access entertainment. And then when you're on the flight, you access entertainment, and there's no rating systems, no parental control. So that's an example of a commingled thing that has both good and bad defaults associated with it. So what we really did is parsed out what's good, what's bad from a user experience philosophy, from a incentives perspective. And because all tech that is free is built on the attention economy, so much of the design purpose behind it is actually not to serve users. It's actually to serve the people building the app, monetizing your attention. And so we, in a sense, have a continuum that we've established of practices from bad to good. And we even rate apps from bad to good internally, give them a score from 0 to 100, and have a list of kind of 6 overarching principles, but also around 250 questions that we ask, understanding the questions, what really is on a, from a design perspective, what's good or what's evil. And we sort of get a toxicity score in a sense. And that's developed, and it's constant, and it's not even solid right now. Like, I mean, we're continuing to evolve it right now. Like, for example, AI right now, there's a lot of shakeup in the AI space, even in the last few weeks, around asking that question of what's good or bad. And so we could dive into any of these if you wanted to, but that's the overarching process here.
I think we'll get into all of it. What I'm really curious about, though, is just generally, I mean, you're a smart guy. I mean, this is a really, really smart product you've created here, and you're clearly a fantastic entrepreneur. If we kind of like look back on this, is it like a family thing? Is this a you thing? Like, where do you kind of get this spirit for technology and innovation from? Kind of any points there? I mean, it must come from somewhere, right?
Yeah. So kind of time back into the family history here. So like when I was working at the family business, again, 5th gen family business, I had everything I needed. I had accomplished everything I wanted in life, and I was 23 years old. Like, legitimately, I didn't have to do anything. And I just had a hope or a vision that was beyond myself. Like, hey, if I could do something that could change the world in a very meaningful way. And I sort of had this blank page moment, and I literally sat down and had a sheet of blank paper, and I wrote down 25 business ideas. And out of those, like, crossed out 20 of them, chose the top 5, and then started running numbers on some. And at the end of the day, I had really kind of a binary decision of, do I do the one that's dependable, leans into my skill set, could make money, be, lower risk, higher return type of thing, or I do this crazy thing that I know nothing about. I'm non-technical, and you invest your time, effort, and energy for years, and it can literally turn into a big zero, like just high risk, but it has the potential to genuinely move the needle in a worldwide fashion. We're talking like millions of kids living a childhood without pornography access, or people literally just breaking the cycle of the defaults that are set upon them that just leech their attention and focus, and like literally regaining their souls. And this was so compelling and so captivating that I just had to dive in. But it came from a really cool place of, I didn't have to do anything, and a purpose beyond myself. And it's not just me, it's the families involved. Our whole family is a team making this happen. And I had some very core key people, some friends, some key advisors that I wanted to be on this journey with as well. And so we have a cool community behind kind of the impetus to make this happen.
That is absolutely brilliant. What are some of the really great stories that you've heard then? So, I mean, a journey like this where you're doing something with such impactful work, I imagine it's kind of pretty scary going into something like that, where you're kind of dealing with, big products, big agendas as well against people, and kind of reframing mindsets and stuff. But it must be rewarding, right? I mean, what are some of those really great moments you've had from customers or people, or even, people close to you, that have really made this journey worth it?
Yeah. So we have a Slack channel from customer service, just sharing stories. And it's just like a celebration almost perpetually. Very inspiring, very cool moments regularly throughout the week. So we just have this rhythm of celebration. But I think to like bring together a moment that we can wrap our minds around, one of my favorite moments of them all was, we were actually prepping for Sage Mobile. We're launching the iPhone product in the UK specifically. And every time we do a big new technology push, we do a deep dive into our existing user base and just say, what's good, what's bad, what isn't working, pricing, everything, like a complete kind of wipe the slate clean. What should we do to serve people more, to get more people? What can we do? And in that moment, we hired a ex-Google product manager, brilliant lady. She's been consulting product management for the last decade, post-Google career. And she's kind of the PhD, research type. And we said, hey, do market research, blank page. Here's 30 of our customers. Go do an hour interview with each of them and come back to us with your findings. We have just tell us what's the reality of current Wisephone users. And she came back to us, and she had just, I guess, 2 really keywords that drove to the surface, is that consistently everyone that used our product had life transformation, but feelings of peace and freedom. And that was like a huge win, because that's what we were going for. Like, we wanted peace and freedom for everybody. And so that was like a universal feeling. But what really got me was that she said, as she's interviewing people hour after hour after hour for the first time in her entire career, she said she got emotional and she teared up interviewing these folks. And she's a number cruncher, but she teared up because of the sheer transformation in their lives. And I think that's what I get excited about, is like seeing something that's not an app, it's an inch deep and you have a million downloads, but it's actually a mile deep. And it really is in the business of transforming lives. And that's what I get excited about. So
I can imagine.
and that was research, data driven. I mean, like that statistically, we are transforming people's lives, which I just really love.
Let's roll some of those out then. Statistics. So if we crunch a few numbers there, because I think that's what people get quite, people love the story and they love to hear all these things, but I think people's eyes widen, they realize the impact when they kind of hear some of the metrics and stuff too. So generally, in kind of demographics, who are the key demographics that are obviously benefiting from this right now? And just in general, do you have any kind of like good stats that kind of show, I don't know, like for example, how many lives changed, or how many things prevented from being, or how many things blocked? I don't know, just anything like that that's kind of a stark reminder of how many things are just have been done really from this innovation so far.
Sure, totally. So the way that we measure this in the most simple phrase, because here's the deal, what we're doing is so multifaceted. Like I'm talking about Wisephone and Sage, but we have other products and sub products within them. And we have things that we do to inspire people to go, what do you do with the time that you have? So it's because it's multifaceted, we're trying to come up with the roll-up number. And the best thing we could come up with, we coined this phrase, we call it life hours. And life hours are hours that people would have spent on a screen, watching cat videos or makeup tutorials, or just, kind of squandering their life. And they're hours that have been reclaimed that people can then use to go wonder, live, imagine, do something more meaningful, productive, relationships, just stuff that's good for you. And as a whole, we have to date reclaimed over 2 billion life hours, which I'm excited about.
Wow.
And we have, it's a multifaceted formula, but we're on the track for 100. That's our goal. Once we have 100 billion life hours, we're going to throw a big party and, put it on our sign, like McDonald's says, a billion cheeseburgers, whatever. That's what we're going to do. So
that's great. So, I saw this advert a while ago, and I totally do believe it's true, because as marketers and advertisers and people who want to sell products to people, we're all trying to get in other people's heads, right? And stuff. And if you look at social media and you look at, the big companies and stuff too, the big tech companies, ultimately, these phones and the social media and the news feeds and stuff too, they are completely catered to hook your attention, right? They are massive investments, and people who are absolute experts in human psychology are the people who are really, really trying to get your attention and secure it and keep you hooked on this thing. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit about that. So, I mean, obviously in a very short period of time, we've seen this massive transformation of the phone, right? And this kind of social experience where we've gone from something that can just communicate and send like a basic text message to this whole communities and mass social medias and forums and all these different things are just aiming to kill your time and your attention and keep you hooked in it because there's money in it. So can you maybe just talk to me a little bit about some of the history of that, the industry, why it's working against you, how it takes your attention, and why, I guess, kind of the human brain is not really cut out to be against that and just gets so susceptible to these things. Any kind of pointers there and things that we can learn from?
Yeah, so you've described a pretty wild whirlwind, and I've always said it's like we're right now, the digital world we live in, we're like ants in a windstorm. It's just like we weren't quite created for this. It's just, and we're all kind of hanging on a little bit, is how we feel. But so you're talking about the history of technology and the fundamental shift. If I was to try to simplify how I view it, it's prior to the iPhone, legitimately, or that first smartphone, really, we had tools, we had tech tools, like for thousands of years. And I mean, I'm talking about microphones and cars and the wheel. Like, I mean, if you just look at the history of technology and all of our tech, there's one thing that's consistent until that moment, was that all of it was reactive to us. It sat there in a corner, and whenever we went and picked it up, then it was something that we used. And our technology has always had its effect on us, right? You use a shovel a lot, it gives you calluses. Like there's a consequence to using technology, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? You lift weights, there's a positive consequence. That's a piece of tech. But at that moment, we literally transcended an entire new era of technological advancement. And philosophically, it changed to where it wasn't reactive, it was proactive. It invaded our lives. It became something that had its own autonomy, its own will, its own intent, and it crept into who we are. I mean, it's following us around in our pockets. It's like it's the last thing we see at night. It's the first thing we see in the morning. And that proactive initiative is an invitation that we've never had. And the lack of boundaries around that proactiveness is really kind of the backbone for why we feel the way we do. You know, I said this, I was talking about this stuff 7 years ago and no one got it. No one understood it. Why would you want a phone that does this, has boundaries on it? And I think people are starting to feel it. The consequences have hit us between the eyes. So that's how, like, in a nutshell, how I would like summarize why we're feeling the way that we're feeling and why it was such a fundamental change. But you could take that and branch 100 different directions if you wanted to. And I mean, AI is going to be a whole nother tier of that autonomous thinking. I mean, what is an agent? It's something that does something without you on its own, in its own ways, you know, and maybe you can control or command it, but eventually it has a will of its own. And so it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And that was actually the true new era that we're facing.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I've got a theory that I in my heart of hearts know is completely true. I'd love to kind of I feel like this is a great opportunity to dig into a theory I've had and kind of roll through this really. So something that I noticed a while ago is, you know, I've always been a really avid reader of books. I love books, and if I do work, I will always do my work on my laptop, okay? And if I want to read a book, I'll always try and read paper books and stuff too. And a while ago, I thought, hey, you know what? I'm gonna try. I think I was maybe on the plane or I was traveling and stuff, and I downloaded the book to my phone, right? And I tried to read this book and kind of absorb the information in my phone while holding it in my hand. And maybe I was tired, maybe not. I just could not absorb the information like I could holding a real book or on my laptop. And I'm almost convinced it is because the doom scroll on social media and the kind of attention span. Because I mean, if you think about it, really, you know, for the listeners too, when you're on these apps scrolling through shorts or reels or whatever it might be, or Snapchat stories, there's very little actual attention or brain power going into that. It's just kind of like an action, really. And I genuinely feel like I felt a real correlation there between the doom scroll and the social media completely killing my ability to actually focus on absorbing information properly, holding the phone like that in the same way. What's the correlation there? Am I right in thinking that? Can you talk to me a little bit about it?
Totally. So you are spot on. This is one of our principles about we believe strongly in a physical reality, and the digital reality, the further we dive into that digital reality, the less healthy it is for us. And that's what you just described in an example. But this has been validated by research and academic studies. Here's another example. Harvard, best academic institution, arguably in the United States right now, just passed a new regulation that they only allow paper-based note-taking. They don't even allow laptops or recording devices. They learned that statistically, just if you're typing notes, creating a digital version of it, there is less absorption of the information, which is what you were talking about, than if you sit here and actually handwrite something. There's something that happens in our brains due to the effort involved and the physical reality of bringing that to life that changes the way we absorb stuff. And so that's on the information side, but you can apply it to so many things. I mean, you can apply it. I know there's a lot of business entrepreneurs that listen to this and leadership people. I mean, it is a Japanese business philosophy, part of lean manufacturing, that you have paper-based scorecards that people physically on the line have to go over and check. Yes, I hit my goal, and no, I didn't. And that importance of the physical piece of it, they've unlocked that for hundreds of years, but even recently in today's digital world, some of the best manufacturers in the world are using paper-based physical scorecards for stuff because of that connect. So you're absolutely spot on. There's more to it than meets the eye, but we keep trying to bring people into the reality of whatever physical world we can have and tangible objects instead of the digital world. So
Okay. So next thing I kind of want to dig into as well is a little bit more of the sort of actually just the actual brain side of it too. So what's actually going on in there as well? Because I've always wanted to learn more about it, and you're the person to talk on it. So when we do, I call it the doom scroll. I feel like that's what everyone calls it. You know, that
yeah,
time
we
when
own
you
doomscroll.com, by the way. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
right there with you.
There you go. That's perfect. Yeah, well, I mean, I could have seen that one coming. So the doom scroll, right? So 3 minutes turns into 2 hours, and I don't know how to explain it, but just sometimes when you just laying awake in bed at night and you're kind of looking at your phone or whatever, or you're just you're sat there in a seat doing this scrolling thing, you can just stand up. You can stand up and stop and put it down at any second. Like honestly, if someone just went snap, and you could stand up and you can stop it straight away. But there is just some kind of elastic pull to just keep you there. That is a mental, almost kind of like gelatin that just keeps you there. And it's hard to break away from it, actually. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what it actually is? And so, when we're on social media, scrolling, and that 3 minutes becomes 30, then 60, then 90, then 120, or however long people go. I mean, I don't know how bad it can truly get, but I imagine really bad.
Yeah.
What kind of state of the brain is that? What is is it all dopamine? I mean, what is going on in there? Why are we so susceptible to this addiction?
Yeah. So what you're describing, it's real, and it is highly refined, calculated process of manipulation that is intentionally designed to do exactly what you just described. I mean, that has been knobs and dials and tests and turns and psychologists. And I mean, like that is, you are created, like that experience was made for you. I mean, that's a real deal. And that's billions of dollars of research in action right there. And it's pulling in a lot of different mechanics, incentives, brain hacking incentives that we have. I mean, and I could go into all of them, but let me unpack just one, for example. Our brain really is fast. The psychology of gambling, like what's around the corner. Actually, the psychology of variable rewards is like when you gamble, you put money down, you don't know if you're going to get, you put down $1, you don't know if you're going to get $1, $5, $10, $0. That is something innate within humans, the curiosity within us, that we just have to uncover what is that thing. And that's something that gambling casinos have been using and exploiting and spamming for years. And just like, that's why they make money, is the psychology of random rewards at random time intervals. And that's something that you can use for good or for evil. I mean, I use it for kids, for parenting. We have a little lottery system that we use. When you're good, you get a ticket. And at the end of the week, we draw a bunch of tickets, so that's instilling character within them. But think about how videos have gone from, long form stuff to, TikTok became popular, 60-second short form videos. Oh, and now YouTube's doing it. Now Meta's doing it. Like that random like snippet bit is like leaning into that principle of what's the reward right around the corner type of thing, the physical action of thumbs. I mean, we could go down a list, but there's an example of one psychological principle that's been brain hacked, that's been refined, and there is a knob, and you can turn it up, you can turn it down. I mean, Zuckerberg has talked about the knob that you can control. Another one is sexuality. There is literally a direct correlation. Actually, there's two others direct that are both toxic, that are things we're fighting. There's a direct correlation with how aggressive or toxic or controversial a headline or a piece of news is and how much user engagement you get. Well, guess what? They're all allowing and filtering and promoting the stuff at the high end of the spectrum, because that's sensationalism is what gets you on their platform instead of someone else's platform. They control that. They could change the algorithm to be more positive, hopeful, character building, less divisive. But everything that's happening politically in the United States, I believe, if you follow the trend, it's actually because social media platforms are incentivized to be as toxic as possible, because that drives user engagement. Same thing with sexuality. Zuckerberg talked about this. You get a girl in a bikini and you get engagement. And then the closer you get to the line of explicit, the more engagement you get. Well, at one point, they have to draw the line. So they're drawing the line as close to possible to get the maximum engagement, when reality, I think you should probably dial it down and tone it down and literally look at an image. The more sexual it is, the less you should push it to people's feeds, like these are all dials that are controlled. And this is what I talk about when I say product philosophy. It's not actually technological advancement, the stuff we've been building. It's just literally a different perspective of why are we doing what we're doing. And I'm not here to make money. So therefore I have a different incentive to change the world than all the big tech companies are, So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I'd love to dig into the psychology of it a little bit more, but just generally, something I've noticed as well with people recently, they think that, when people get busy or entrepreneurs get busy, and, small business owners, people I know on a personal level who have been, hooked by the phone, and they're very, very guilty of the doom scroll and stuff too. They automatically think, right, okay, so I'm super busy now. I need to create more time in my day, right? So I'm going to get up earlier, or I'm gonna, I'm gonna go to bed earlier, get up earlier, create some more hours then, right? Or I'm gonna, do this sooner. I'm gonna, time block and blah 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 blah. Actually, I don't think people actually realize generally how much time they spend on this doom scroll, and actually that hour that they think they're gonna gain and stuff and kill their sleep schedule or whatever to get another hour in the day. Actually, that day, that hour could be found somewhere in the day, spread out with all of this scrolling and stuff, even for high performance people. So I don't know. I mean, what is the right way to start identifying if you're really getting affected by this? And, what are the kind of key signs? And when does it start to get too much? That's another great question too, I think. Just at what point is exposure to this really, really bad for you?
So here's a test. Open up your phone, pull up screen time reports, and look at your screen time. I mean, I do this. I've done this live on a podcast. It was funny. Last podcast I was on, he was like, "How many hours do you do?" And he's like, "I think it's maybe 7 or 8." I said, "Show the camera." He flipped his camera around and it was 10 and a half. He would not. But legitimately, I think here's the deal. The answer to how bad is it when it's toxic, the truth is that it's an idol to everybody, including me. And I have a minimalist phone. Okay. Like I'm the guy that made the minimalist phone, and it's an idol to me. So the answer is yes, it's toxic for you already. I can promise you that. Like 99% of people, unless you're Amish listening to this, there's some destruction here. But there's a direct correlation, 100% statistically, with the more time you spend on social media and higher levels of anxiety, depression, lower mental health, suicide rates. And that applies to teenagers. It applies to adults. It applies to creative professionals. It applies to high capacity people. And so legitimately, like, imagine a world where you spend 20 minutes on a phone a day, or you have your computer and you're only using your computer 4 hours a day and the rest of it's face-to-face conversations. Like, that's a healthy reality that nobody lives within. But just to pose a different world that I'm striving for that, and I actually do pretty good within that most of the time. And I run the company, I have 8 screens that I pull up when I plug into my office, and I get a heck of a lot of stuff done. But it's a fairly minimal from a tech perspective, but deep relationally level. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but it's just a different world here.
It does. So something else I'm wondering about too then is, so I know for myself as well, especially someone running a podcast, right? The short clips and stuff are massively important. I can say I'm guilty of it too. I know now that shorter videos and content, they get more views, but they're less likely to subscribe or likely to go and view your long form content. So kind of like a shorts view on YouTube is worth way less than a long form view is. And actually I had a great conversation a while ago with the editor of the Mission Impossible movies and Top Gun Maverick as well. Funnily enough, we were talking about Top Gun. It's a big thing of mine. And he said, the old movie, that whole opening sequence with Danger Zone and stuff too. He was like, yeah, that worked great back then. It was long. It was several minutes long. When we made Top Gun Maverick, we had to make it, I can't remember what he said exactly, 1/6 of the length or something, just because it just wouldn't work for people and their things nowadays, just wouldn't be engaged with it. They would get bored of it. It just wouldn't be good. So anyway, rounding back to my question for you then. So people in social media and stuff too, like myself, podcasting, I feel like Instagram and social media is a very essential part of what I'm doing, but I also don't want to be in the mix as well of being hooked on this and killing my time in the news feed. But I do feel like keeping in touch with people, seeing what's going on, being plugged in, making Instagram content and posts, engaging, and just being active in these social media communities and stuff is really essential to my business. So as someone in high performance who really wouldn't survive business wise without social media and being involved in these platforms in quite a large degree, how would you draw the line there and develop that discipline, especially, with your product as well, a minimalist phone? How do you get the best of that if you're someone in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's a huge tension, huge tension. I mean, I had an ad agency prior to this, like, and there are ethics around marketing. Like, what do you do when it comes to, I mean, like, hands down, some of the best ad agencies in the world became successful. I'm not even joking. There was one group that like mailed out nude photos of themselves to every single client they had, and they got millions of dollars in bookings and ad revenue. Like, I call that an exploitation of human psychology, but was it smart advertising? Yes. So like, there's this continuum of like what's effective and works in today's world, and it might be toxic, all the way to what's not effective at the cost of engagement or sacrifice. And that same tension, I mean, you talked about Top Gun. I spoke to one of the primary producers for the Daily Wire, with the Ben Shapiro show and everything, and they had two shorts. One of them was titled Ben Shapiro destroys the liberal atheists, this very toxic, awful headline, sentiment analysis. And the other one was the exact same clip. And it said, Ben Shapiro has a great conversation, a friendly conversation, debating someone with opposing views. Guess which one had millions of views? I mean, and so me personally, I actually do have ethical qualms with the toxicity of the posts that drove high engagement. So I can't give you a precise answer, but my one principle I would say is recognize that there is a good and there is an evil version of that engagement online, both for yourself personally, like, hey, how much time you spend doing stuff, and how you promote things, there's a good and evil version. And then I would say be willing to accept some degree of sacrifice for the good version. I don't know how much you should sacrifice. If you have a video and you could title it terrible or title it wonderful, and get 10x the views, I don't know where to dial that in for you, if that makes sense. But whatever the world is doing that is effective, I don't think that should be your standard. That should not be your benchmark. You should ask higher level questions of what should I do for myself? What should I do for my platform? And yes, my engagement might drop 20%. So be it. I'm more authentic. I'm more real. I'm actually contributing in a positive way to the world. And you can sleep better at night because you know that you're not feeding into the cesspool that is the digital world we live in today. So
yeah, it's so true. So true. It's funny as well, because every single time you see one of those, the classic, the clickbait title on YouTube or something, and you go and watch the video and it's got nothing of what they were saying, right? You go through the comments and it is full of people who flip and hate it. So they got the views, they got the engagement, they probably got a bit of ad revenue from it too, but they got a lot of hate. They didn't get any subscribers from it and stuff. So actually, if you are titling things right, you're making things look good, and you're being authentic and honest and creating the content people do want to see and they are looking for it, and then they find it, they're more likely to be a retained customer or subscriber as well. So it works both ways. And funnily enough, I've seen comments when people saw like something that sounded like a clickbait title, it was actually spot on to the video. They actually say, thank you for making this, for making this thing so authentic. It's really, really funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. And like an example is like, you're making a podcast, right? I have a podcast as well. Like, my hope is to actually pull people into more meaningful interaction. So this long form conversation we're having, there's depth to it. There's nuance to it. It's video. Like, there's a real conversation that adds value to people's lives in the midst of this. It's not sensationalist. It's not Kanye West posting some crazy stuff to just sell albums. But if you do have short form content, like, how do you nudge people to engage in a deeper level, that in a way that actually adds value, not in a saccharine, sugary, like, toxic way, but like, hey, I actually want to change your life. Go engage with this hour and a half conversation I had with this founder or with this elite athlete, and maybe that will change you in meaningful ways. So like, where you're nudging people towards matters as well. So there's
true.
some principles that could help unpack this, at least.
I agree. Another thing as well is, I'm pretty data driven as well, and I'm pretty, deep in the analytics of my channel and the podcast as well. And I know from the research I've done, and I think any decent content creator, someone who wants to make it in this industry knows, is that there's two things that are opposing factors. There's views versus retention rate, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you could get a whole load of views, but if you don't get any retention rate in the videos and people don't actually stick on the videos, that video is never going to get anywhere, because these algorithms know, okay, so you got a video, but no one wants to stay on it and watch it. So it's probably pretty bad, right? So actually, if you're being authentic with these kinds of things and you get people who genuinely are interested in the content, retention goes up, you probably get more views over a slightly longer period of time, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, as a business owner, just to put it for another listener listening from an entrepreneurial perspective, I face the same tension. I have the tension of revenue versus my brand value, which I measure in net promoter score. And I always say that net promoter score is the greatest predictor of my value over the next 5 years, and revenue is my value today. And guess what? I can run some flash sale or do some, crazy thing, or even say my product does something that it doesn't do. I'll drive revenue up, but I'll crap on my brand. And, like I launched a similar product around the same time as number one kids device out there. And they chose to go value, cheap, sales, and the service was terrible, 2.5 stars, and had a terrible net promoter score. And their company had terrible brand value and recognition. Guess what? They cranked revenue. They had 5 times the revenue I did year one. But as time goes on, I've caught up and they've slowly dissipated. And I think we should be in it for the long haul. So, right, your retention, your brand value, your sincerity, your authenticity, that's the stuff that actually matters in life when you look back, years later. And so, yeah, you could blip something real quick or have some viral moment, but where did Hawk Tua end up? It's not what we're striving for. So
Flipping true. So, I got super curious when you mentioned this at the start of the podcast as well. I feel like now's a good time to start digging into it. So Apple buying into what you're doing. I mean, what can you tell me about that then? So I guess it's one of these interesting ones where it's kind of like, okay, well, Apple, Meta, etc., they're kind of the ones who are sort of pushing these sort of devices and these platforms and stuff that are kind of creating this issue in the way, really, right? So, what are Apple looking to do with you guys? And I guess in the kind of situation where Apple, I guess they're sort of the facilitators of all these apps and they're pushing the devices. I just got the iPhone 17. It just feels more sort of gluey than ever, really, right? All the buttons do all these funny things and it all looks all crazy, and it's just it's just very engaging, very sort of addictive, and it's easy to spend a lot of time on there. So I guess what's Apple seeing in that, and talk about what you can. I'd love to know what the future's looking like of all this.
Yeah. So a little bit of context. The world has changed from when we first started. I mentioned Josh Banko, early product manager for us, guy that made the Apple iPad. We're making Wisephone on Android for technological reasons. And I said, hey, whatever we're doing, this minimalist, healthy phone, can we do it on an iPhone too? And he just laughed. It was like the shortest brainstorm session I ever had. It was 30 seconds done. And normally we sit around for 2 or 3 hours coming up with ideas of how to create breakthrough change. It just died. And that laugh has echoed for 5 years of I really want to do something with Apple. Long story short, a few things have changed. When we first started, we as a company have evolved to earn the trust of larger tech companies. We partner with Samsung. We partnered with some major US mobile carriers. So we've earned the right to ask, I guess you could say, in just validity and product. And there's a lot of people talking about things that they want to build or they're promising stuff, but it just doesn't quite work, especially in my space, in the kids space and in the purity space, pornography filters and stuff like that. There's a lot of products that are just not quite effective. And so we've earned the trust there. And then secondly, the world has shifted to where there's pressure now that wasn't there 5 years ago. And Apple, I'm going out on a limb theorizing here. I don't know this for a fact, but I could see them losing market share to people like us and minimalist phones and other companies out there, kids phones and such. And so at the same time, we are claiming some brand promises that are things that they could not get behind. If we say porn free, if Apple came out and said porn free, that would be really offensive to a lot of their user base. And so what are they doing? My theory is A, they can trust us. B, they want market share in a group that we're providing, and they're okay with us taking brand philosophies and perspectives that they may not be able to fully align with, but yet they still capture the revenue, because guess what? We're paying the same amount for an iPhone that you are. So they capture full revenue, regain market market share. That's my best theory as to why the doors have opened for us here. So
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting future for it for sure, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. Beyond just the phone itself and the technology, I'm going to draw a little bit of a parallel here, and hope you forgive me for it too. But just being in fitness for a very long time, as a personal trainer, I've just bought a gym as well. So I've known people going to the gym for years, and
this
I've
is a
I've
great
seen.
parallel, by the way. Keep going. Like this is
I
wonderful.
will.
I use this a lot. So dive in.
So people love to splash money on the newest trends and the newest things, and they all want the personal trainers, and they all want to get the Gymshark kit and all stuff, and they want to get the membership, and they take out 12-month contract memberships and stuff, and they do all this stuff because it's kind of like, right, this is just them hitting that dopamine thing, and they're just getting into it, and then they never stick to it, right? So the parallel I want to draw here, really, I hope it's the same one that you were imagining too, is people get your tech and that device. Is that enough sometimes? Like, what do people have to do? Does it go beyond just the phone and stuff as well? Do people revert back? I mean, what kind of lifestyle changes can you expect people to start making that also, will make beyond just the tech, make it stick for them as well? So,
Yeah.
with that fitness parallel, the question I'm always asking myself is, after someone's finished their PT block booking of sessions, are they going to keep going after that is finished and stuff, or are they just going to go back and then get back in the cycle months later and spend a load of more money on it?
Yeah, yeah. So first, you were extremely insightful to connect the dots between fitness and the trends of user engagement along with what we're doing. Because what we're doing is digital health, and fitness costs money, it's inconvenient, it takes discipline, like it's a hassle, right? To do that and to live a truly healthy life from a fitness perspective, it takes commitment. Like there's real skin in the game. And yes, you feel better and the rewards outweigh the pain, but how many people can actually commit to it? There's a challenge with that. So what I would say is when it comes to technology, we're in the exact same dynamics, except the whole industry is where fitness was decades ago. It's in its infancy, and people don't even understand that this stuff is killing them. It's toxic. We're overweight. Like our cholesterol's high. Like they're starting to feel, oh wait, this is bad. And so just like people started fitness and pioneering, and it was kind of like this industry that evolved out of fitness. We're in the same space, and we're one of the early players, defining what healthy is, defining calories and non-GMO and fair trade. And so that dynamic you talked about is real. People start with the phone. Oh, wait, there's inconveniences associated with this thing. Maybe it's not that hard. Oh, wait, 30 days in and like I feel better. Oh, that sounds like a fitness thing, Oh, there's a cost. You have to pay a monthly subscription to it. Well, what do you know? You got to pay for fitness stuff, So many parallels you could draw through it. But our goal, and one that I say we're accomplishing, is that our goal is for this to be the singular long-term sustainable thing. It's not a fad diet. It's not a quick little snippet. It's not a 30-day detox. This is the device that is the solution that is permanent for you for the rest of your life. And we've dialed that in pretty well. It's not perfect yet, but 3 years ago, we didn't have any third-party apps. It was just the stuff we made. Well, we learned you need a travel apps, and you need your blood glucose meter, and you need your finance apps, and these aren't actually killing you. So we've allowed third-party apps that are curated that, but our goal, and we are succeeding in minimalist phones. So many people buy them, put them in drawers. I can't tell you how many light phones are just sitting in drawers, not being used. We have kind of cracked the code in that, like long-term, here's how I live my life healthy in a sustainable way. So
Pretty exciting stuff, that's for sure. I mean, ultra impactful. I can see how many people this would obviously benefit for sure. I mean, it's an epidemic right now. I mean, going around, and it's just a war against attention, really, isn't it? And I think one of the things I really want to dive into as well on this front as well is just so I guess it's kind of like the whole alcoholic thing as well. Maybe there's a parallel there to be drawn as well, where you think you're sort of detoxing on something, but you're not really. Then you go home and you grab something else, and you kind of like make these small cutbacks, but you never quite get to the root of the problem, I suppose, too.
yeah,
And one of the rules I've always had as well, like in buying things as well, I suppose, is, for example, golf recently, I've been tempted to get a whole load of new clubs and stuff as well. But I know myself, and I know that my attention span sometimes doesn't stick. So, 3, 4, 5 months down the line, I'm probably it might not be that interested in it. So I'm not going to spend the money now. But what I will do is right now, I'm going to give myself a 3 to 4 to 5 or something month rule where I say, right, if I can stick to it for 5 months with the crappy clubs I have right now, that's when I'll know that this is staying. And then I'm going to go and get the stuff that I really want. So I'm just curious, with the buying experience of your tech, is it wise maybe just to sort of run a bit of a self-test on if you're really going to stick to something like this before you buy into it? So maybe there's a way to strip back the phone you already have and kind of detox and see if you can maybe stick to it. And then maybe it's time to kind of commit into getting something like this and then putting some money into it. And then you know that you're actually going to stick to it, because what's the point of getting the stripped back phone if you're going to just grab the iPad in the evening and go straight back to it, right?
Yeah, totally. So at cost of sales, I'll answer this honestly. I love your experimentation method in life. I do the same thing. I test things. I had a pickup truck and I paid $400 for my pickup truck, and I used it every week for 9 months. And I said, you know what? I can spend $4,000 on a pickup truck now. So the thing barely run, but I earned my way into it. And so here's what I'll say. Yes, do experiment. I will also say this, that I do believe that it won't succeed. You're setting yourself up for failure because so many things are broken around the incremental solutions. Like everybody, have you ever deleted an app out of intentionality and then you actually end up reinstalling the app? Like that just is a universal experience. Apple screen time is kind of buggy. Like the system you're in as you're experimenting is designed to suck you back in. So just know that. So if you like halfway succeed, then maybe it's worth considering a deeper dive, because at the end of the day, what we really need are actually boundaries at our tech level, at the platform level. That's the true breakthrough. So yes, experiment, turn your phone into grayscale mode, delete some stuff, see how you feel, rediscover what your weekly rhythm could look like, have a no phone Sunday, no phones in the bedroom rules, like play with stuff like that. And that is meaningful progress. Have at it. At the end of the day, I think that genuine breakthrough change comes when you change the platform, the system you soak yourself in. So I'm the guy selling the platform though, so take it with a grain of salt.
I like it. I really like it. So it kind of begs the question for me then. So what is essential on a phone then, in your opinion? So if you kind of look at these things, and I guess it's probably a bit of a case by case, right? Where some people in different industries, they have different needs and uses. And I guess, some people might have use of whatever app, or I might have more use of like a document scanner or like a fitness app, or, my coaching apps and stuff. Yeah, apps, basically, things like this. So
Yep.
I guess question being, as I said, what do you feel are the sort of the bare bone essentials on a phone? If you're someone who's either coming into, just getting their first phone, maybe it's a youngster and you're thinking, right, I want to kind of set this thing up for my kid. What are they going to need to get the experience, but not get hooked in this thing and learn all the bad habits? Anything there?
Yeah. So I'll answer that with our product progression, because this is exactly what we've done. So when we first launched Wisephone 1 early on, we had 8 apps and we built them from the ground up: maps, clock, calculator, camera, phone, messaging. Like that was it. And we had some functions in them to limit their use. So for example, the camera, we had a setting called instant camera where you could just take one picture and then it like timed out for a couple minutes, so that you had to be in the moment. You couldn't like sit here and like do the selfie 40 photos and then pick the best one and live on your phone like that, so there's a little bit of like sub app behaviors that you could dial in, but those are the basics. And the way I look at this is there's this just straight continuum between practical, useful things that you just need to get life done, and they don't take your time or attention. They're tools in the purest sense. They sit there, they don't bug you. And then on the far right side, you have entertainment, things that just are addicting, distracting, bug you, constantly reach out. And then you have stuff in the middle. So like medical things, transportation things, finance things, all on the left side. Like we live in a connected world. You got to have some of that stuff. On the right side, you have social media, you have explicit content, you have just media in general. Games kind of fall into this category. Right in the middle, from a research perspective, is music. Like, yes, you put your headphones in and you check out from the world. That's not quite perfect, but at the same time, if you look at the research, generally people have positive experiences from listening to podcasts and music and audio forms of engagement instead of video forms. And then the one outlier that we could debate around is productivity tools. My personal perspective is that productivity tools, email, docs, stuff like that, that should just be on a computer, shouldn't be in your pocket. You go to your computer, open your laptop, and you're in work mode, and it's not following you around all the time. That's my personal philosophy. But the other stuff, like, we apply to our products. So
I feel like this probably won't apply to adults too much, but I feel like it would probably apply more to the kids. This question here, and I think it's a good one to ask for sure. So, and quite an important one actually as well. So, something I've noticed, throughout my very few years on this planet as a person, and obviously as a school kid too at a time, was that you always had these kids and these groups of kids and stuff around you who always had the newest tech, and they were all on social media and they were all doing these things, and the kids who weren't so privileged or had stricter parents often felt kind of left out, or sometimes got bullied for not having it and stuff too. I'm curious, kids who are in this system, they may not know it's for their own good, and actually it is massively helping them and benefiting them, because maybe the kids around them might make fun of them and stuff too. So on both perspective points of that, as a parent, how do you kind of prepare yourself if you're putting your kid on this thing? How do you prepare yourself to kind of walk your kids through why this is so important for them as well, when they might actually, feel a little bit left out when all their friends are, not part of the same regime yet. And then that's a kid as well, or a young person as well. How do you kind of navigate those feelings of, wanting to really kind of be in that mix and kind of fit in with the other kids and stuff too? Even though you're not kind of with the same thing, you're on a different path with a different tech, and you're avoiding things that these other kids don't know is actually really harming them. How do you deal with that from the parent and the kid perspective?
Yeah. So it's a wonderful question. That's the heart of some of the dynamics going on in tech right now. There's this herd effect that is at play. And so here's what I know. We did a questionnaire for 750 students in my local town. And one of the questions, I actually asked this face to face to all the students at two different schools that came together for an event we did. I said, hey, if you could live in a world with no social media, never has been, never will be, just completely free of the digital world, and all of your friends live in that world too, would you? And all but 5 kids raised their hand. They yearn for that world that you're describing. And I will say that kids actually are more aware of how toxic and dangerous this stuff is than their parents are. They know, hands down, they know. And in that questionnaire with 750 students, we asked one of the questions. We said, if you could tell your parents one thing around digital, world, whatever, what would you tell them? And 600 of them answered with some type of outcry, Mom and Dad, you have no idea how many terrible dick pics I get. Mom and Dad, you have no idea about this guy that solicited me on Roblox app. Mom and Dad, you don't know that I have 3 YouTube accounts and I'm making content and I'm only 12 years old. Mom and Dad, you don't know how much just garbage I met. You don't have any idea how depressed and discouraged it's been. You don't know that I'm cutting myself because of the comparison game that I played. And this is second grade through high school. It was everybody, the overarch. If you're a parent listening to this, and if you're a kid listening to this, legitimately, I can promise you that the kids want you to do something. Have courage, and they might even act frustrated. They might feel but deep down inside, I promise you, they're going to feel loved. Just trust me in that. And they might act like they hate you, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when they look back at all the chaos and destruction that all of their friends had, there will be a moment where they'll come to you, or maybe they won't come to you, but eventually it's going to be wow, look at all this mess that you saved me from. I am so glad that you had the courage to love me in this way. So that's, if you're a parent by yourself with a kid dealing with this struggle for your own kid, have the courage, know that they want this boundary in their life, and they know about it, and they know how terrible it is. And you're actually the one keeping them from living that full life. And it may not feel right. It might be hard. It might be the hardest thing you've ever done as a parent, but trust that, I guess, is one thing. And then the other piece, to make it easier, I've learned this hands down, non-negotiably, back to that question of, if you could live in the world, the contingency was that everybody lives in that world. And so what I would strongly, strongly recommend is that you do this with other parents. if you're a kid listening to this, like, hey, circle up a few of your friends, and like if there's a group of 4 or 5 parents that come in, or a school or a church or a community or a private school or something, if it's homogenous, or then it's just an instant win. Everybody loves it. No one looks back with regret. It's just like, no one's weird. So buddy up and just do it, whatever you feel convicted to do. And I promise you it will go well. Like, just non-negotiably, it's going to go well for you. So
Yeah, for sure. You know, something that I sort of, and I like to draw parallels, as I'm sure you can tell. We've done 3 of them so far. But, you know, just with the whole kids thing, kind of reminds me a little bit about actually kind of alcoholics in a way as well, just where, you know, if you got someone who's like really far gone, right? Like, I mean, really far gone. And I've spoken to a few doctors and people who specialize in this kind of thing too. So I've got a bit of a good clue about what it's all like. And it's interesting how, you know, the initial reactions when you're pulling someone away from something like this, or they go to the sober camp, right? Or they get the addictions and stuff too. The initial responses there are, you know, that fear, which sometimes comes out in anger or lashing out or being really, really grouchy, and then just doing anything or saying anything just to get back to it. But I mean, have you ever met like an alcoholic who's reformed, who doesn't say, "Oh my God, the best thing I've ever done, and my life is 1,000 times better for it"? It actually sounds like the exact same thing, doesn't it?
yeah, I mean, it's the same path and the same level of complexity, of challenges, of addictions, of hooks. I mean, it's deep rooted. The only problem is that screen addiction is socially acceptable, and being a drunken alcoholic walking around isn't. And so what it takes is the upper 10% of the courageous leaders, men, women, parents, school administrators. We've had so many school administrators reach out to us and just do an entire school-wide Wisephone purchase or mandatory non-smartphone initiative. And actually it's becoming law in Texas right now, which is amazing. But it takes that upper 10% of courage of people to redefine what is not socially acceptable, if that makes sense. And then all of a sudden give it 10 years from now and the whole script has changed. And now the ones who have the smartphones, 10 years from now, it's going to be not the wealthy, affluent ones who are connected. It's going to be the opposite. Right now, I can guarantee you that the ones who are giving their kids smartphone-free childhoods, those are the wealthy, those are the smart ones, the wise ones, the high net worth. There's direct correlation with income level and what they understand about what we're doing. And the world changers of the future are going to be the ones who aren't living this digital world right now. So.
It's true. Chris, I think you got me sold, man. I think, you know, if you got me sold, I think you probably got a lot of people sold right now. Okay, so let's yeah, I feel like we've got a lot out of this conversation. I feel like the best place really to kind of lead this into now really is just a bit of more info about where we can learn more, where we can obviously get stuff, and just start to think about buying into this. So I mean, obviously we had a great talk there. Loads to be taken away from it, and if anyone's taken away from it, I think it's pretty obvious that this is something to be looked into more at the very least, or at the bare minimum considered. So shameless plug time. So if you just take a couple of minutes to promote anything that you're working on, one place to take a look at, or just something you believe in. So obviously that's naturally going to be products, that's also going to be social media, websites, blog, you know, just something for everyone, right? Just a little plug for everyone. Someone who wants to read something more about this and get into it a little bit deeper. Someone who wants to actually buy into this straight away and just go, right, I'm sold, let's get it. And people who want to follow the company and your journey as well and see where it goes in the future.
Yeah. So there's a lot of places I could send you, but I'm not a big self promoter, honestly. But here, I'll just throw these 2 out there. If you're interested, if you're in the United States currently, we are selling Wisephone in the United States. It's a healthy phone. It's minimalist in its design scheme, curated apps. If that sounds like something like a system that you could trust, that you could dive into, wisephone.com is the place to go and grab your Wisephone. As of 2025, we are launching Sage Mobile in the UK only. So if you're in the UK listening, I know that's about a quarter of your audience here. Sage Mobile, look it up, Google it. We are selling iPhones that are healthy, but it's a full iPhone experience. No difference in UX, although there's about 7 layers of protection under the hood. And we made that product for kids and teens. So it's like a perfect first phone for them. But at the same time, it is good for adults. I mean, I'm using one right now and it's great. So Sage Mobile is the place to find that. And we have a few other products in queue, but those are the 2 big ones that serve people. And reach out to us if there's any way we can serve your community. We are constantly iterating on the product, constantly listening and we are leading the world in defining and creating healthy technology. So I'd love to be part of that journey for you.
Brilliant. One more question just hit me on the top of my head as well, before we wrap this up. Last one. So in terms of models of these iPhones, which model iPhones do you get? So when Apple releases a new iPhone as well, kids like to look cool as well. It's kind of part of what we talked about there as well. And people like to be up with the tech and have the storage capacity and all these things, right? So when you do your conversion and stuff, how many models behind is it? Or are you kind of getting to the point where Apple launches 17 and you guys launch 17 stripped back as well?
Yeah. So the best part about this is it ships directly from Apple. So we are up to date with whatever they're shipping. And we also are working on selling some refurbished options because the phone is, $600. There's a monthly fee. It adds up, right? So we're intending to go a couple gens back as far as refurbished. So you could buy a 14 or 15 is kind of what we're looking at right now. We're figuring out the details of that. But basically, yes, whatever Apple's selling, that's what we're selling. And you can stay up to date. And the number one principle driving that, you hit on it, is that we care about the dignity of kids. And that is the number one thing for us, for Sage. The brand is very aggressive. It's like forward-facing Red Bull-esque, just like, I'm finding vibe lords in the world, like artists, these are the guys making the brand. And the whole purpose behind everything in that business model is for kids' dignity, because that matters a lot to us. So we're going after that.
Great stuff. Chris, I mean, what a great conversation that was. I mean, thank you so much for joining me today for the Talk4 podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I feel like I've, filled my, head with a load of stuff that I wish I'd known coming into this. And it has been a learning experience for me, as I have no doubt it has also been for a lot of other people too. So, I mean, all I can say is just a massive thanks for sharing your wisdom. And also, I always like to say this, especially to the veterans and stuff in the military communities too, and veterans who, have obviously done a lot of stuff and made a lot of sacrifices too. I like to say thank you for your service to them. And I'd like to say thank you for your service to you too. I mean, ultimately, you're doing something that's so great and so important for humanity. I think it's highly commendable, and it's a testament to who you are and your morals and philosophy too. So all I can say on that note is thank you for your service, and I appreciate the hell out of you. I'm following your journey very, very closely from now on, my friend.
Louis, well, thank you so much. The conversation was great. The questions are deeply intentional, and you've got some wicked sharp intuition on some of the dynamics that are going on. And I love how you're connecting the dots between some very deep, experiences people have had, whether it's alcoholism or fitness, whatever. Some very strong parallels that not many people have the intuition to have. So thanks for that. Much appreciated.
I appreciate you. Well, it is my job. Thank you guys for listening. This was episode 168. If you'd like to listen to the past episodes, go and have a look at the channel. And if you'd like to listen in for the future ones as well, make sure to hit that subscribe button and spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. And make sure, go and find those links in the description too. They're all going to be in there to go and check this stuff out. See you in the next one. Good night. Cheers.